Welcome back, everyone. It's One-Two Punch, your favorite weekly fighting games radio show that is hosted by me, Zorine Te. Hope you're all staying warm or cool wherever you are, ladies and gents. We have lots to talk about again this week. Fighting games are well and truly alive. What a great time to be here. I'm Zorine. As usual, this is One-Two Punch, the weekly radio show that you're listening to. We're live every week, same time, same day, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. PST or 10 p.m. EST if you're on the East Coast. Shout outs to my homies there. And as always, looking forward to hearing your feedback. If you like the show, if you wanted to give us comments, say anything about it, you can tweet at us using Twitter. That's using the hashtag One2Punch. That's hashtag and the numbers 1, 2 and the word punch. Or you can tweet at us directly. I am at Zorine. That's at Zorine, or you can tweet at Esports Network. That's at Esports Network. I read all the tweets. I lurk a lot on Twitter, and I also look on YouTube as well. So if you're dropping comments there, shout outs to everyone who's watching right now on YouTube. Hi, I'm waving to the camera. As usual, appreciate all your feedback, and thank you for tuning in again. To everyone who's new, welcome to the show, and to everyone who's returning, welcome back. Glad to have you with us. So, on to the news of what we're covering today. But before all that, I just want to quickly say we have a special, very special guest who will be joining us later today as well on the show. Really excited. We've got the guest ball rolling. Shout outs to Super Noon last week who joined us, the Marvel player, and we had a great chat about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and how the Marvel scene is doing in general. So thank you, Super Noon, for joining us. And if you missed it, you can catch us there. You can check us out on YouTube at Esports Network, or you can listen to this in podcast format. I heard that's quite popular nowadays. We are on Google Play, iTunes. I believe we're on Spotify as well, and like all the other podcast hosting services. So we're there. But this week we have a Street Fighter commentator who will be joining us after I go through all this news. So really excited to have him dial in as well later on. So moving on quickly to the news that we are going to be covering today, quite a few things. I think most people will have the biggest news on their mind right now is the announcement of the Capcom Pro Tour that Capcom announced a couple of days ago. They released the news actually on President's Day, so I think that was February 19th, the Monday, and it was quite funny because I was like, do they know this is a public holiday? Anyway, in America it is anyway. So CPT, Capcom Pro Tour 2018 details have been announced. That is, of course, the year-long league that runs throughout 2018. And basically, it's like a series of Street Fighter tournaments, and players go and compete in them. And depending on how they place, they earn points. And then the points go towards the grand finale at the end of the year, which is the Capcom Cup. And 32 players enter in there and duke it out for the, grand title of a Street Fighter champion and win like a massive, massive prize. It's a very prestigious event and pretty much one of the biggest events, I suppose you could say, that Street Fighter players are probably working hard towards as well. So we have details about that from Capcom. Street Fighter 4 Champion Edition was also released today on Android. So mobile version of Street Fighter, you can take it with you, put it in your pocket wherever you go. And of course, everyone's new darling right now, Dragon Ball FighterZ. Bandai Namco revealed details for 2 new characters coming to Dragon Ball FighterZ. So let's dig into that first. Really exciting. So just a couple of days ago, Bandai Namco revealed 2 new Dragon Ball FighterZ characters who will be DLC, downloadable content, of course. The first character is Brawley, the powerful antagonist from the movies. He's like a Saiyan, goes like massive Super Saiyan, also extremely huge buff dude, like almost to the point where it's disproportionate, I want to say. But anyone who has watched all the Dragon Ball movies, well, at least the ones including Brawley, will know that he is super strong, really powerful. In the movies, he's kind of, I guess, cast as like this rumored mythical warrior who appears once every 1,000 years. And I remember watching the Brawley movie like so long ago now. It must have been over a decade ago now. Watching the first Brawley movie and just being like in awe and like shock of how crazy strong he is. Like he took on everyone in the fighter squad, like everyone in the FighterZ squad, and trashed them. Super badass, and they all had to band together and like fight him and destroy him. So yeah, Brawley is coming into the Dragon Ball FighterZ cast as DLC. His character is described as being super powerful with long reach, and he has his signature energy attack, which is a razor cannon. So kind of feels like, if the game, Dragon Ball FighterZ was to follow the same canon as the series, that Broly would just destroy everyone. But then again, like Yamcha's in the game, and so is Chaozu and Tien, and like they're kind of like the sucky part of the squad, right? And people still apparently use them, right? So it's just kind of funny how like, when these characters get introduced into the game, they have to you kind of have to like be a bit flexible in regards to adhering to anime canon. Otherwise, some of the characters would just get completely trashed. Like, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, the second character who is coming to the Dragon Ball FighterZ, sorry, old habits die hard, is Bardock, the father of Goku. So Bardock is a character, he hasn't really seen much airtime in the Dragon Ball series. I know he appeared in a movie, and like the movie kind of like starred him, and he was like a Saiyan with his group of Saiyans who were trying to like fight back against Frieza. And, sadly died and, had to put all his hopes and dreams and legacy onto his son, Goku. Actually, on that note, I just remembered something about Brawley. I do remember very, very vaguely in the depths of my memory, like, I don't know if anyone here will know who I'm talking about. I guess you have to have seen the movies, but like Brawley like hates Goku with a passion. And it's like hinted at, I guess, kind of in the movies, like that they're destined to be just like enemies of each other. Like there's something about Goku that just really, really, really irritates Brawley and like draws out his hate or something. It's just interesting fact. I wonder if he'll have like special dialogue when it comes to facing Goku. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, so back to Bardock, the father of Goku. He will be a rush type character in Dragon Ball FighterZ, combining speed and power. And he excels in close distances and has a move called Riot Javelin, which is probably similar to his final spirit canon in the series. So yeah, so there's like a very, very short gameplay trailer out for both of these characters. We don't have much info yet, but if you do go like search online for some video footage, you'll see like a little bit of them. And Broly looks huge and Bardock looks exactly like Goku. So yeah, they look pretty much like their anime/movie counterparts, which is great. Lots of hype there. Now, the two characters are included as part of the Dragon Ball FighterZ Season Pass. So if you did buy the Season Pass, you'll get them too, as well as the other 6 DLC characters who will be coming but haven't been revealed yet. So we don't know who the next 6 characters are. Bandai Namco hasn't announced any like individual pricing for these 2 characters yet, I don't think, unless I've missed it. But the Season Pass alone costs $35 or £29. Or $53 if you're Australian, rip, like me. So yeah, that's it for Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, I did see another article in passing. I just wanted to mention that people have been talking about Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's always annoying I have to say that. Dragon Ball FighterZ player base on Steam actually dropping very, very sharply. So we know that when the game was released, and I mentioned this in a previous episode, we know that when the game was released, it broke records on Steam for fighting games like by a long margin. So before that, Tekken had held the record for the highest number of concurrent players on Steam, Tekken 7, sorry, and that was at 7,000 or around the 7,000 mark. And then Dragon Ball FighterZ came along and completely washed that record, like completely stomped all over it, and had a record of over 40,000 players on Steam at the same time, concurrent users for Dragon Ball FighterZ. But the latest news is that that player base has fallen down a lot and has dropped over maybe like 80 to 90%. So that's really interesting. I wonder if, people are just getting sick of the game already, or, getting distracted, or other things happening that have drawn their interest. I don't know. But maybe, the release of these 2 DLC characters will draw fresh interest. So I think I'm hoping that is what will happen because, Dragon Ball FighterZ still has a lot of potential and we still haven't seen much of it in the competitive scene yet. We do know that it is going to be at EVO, so that'll be a really fun one to look out for. Next up on our list of news, Street Fighter 4 Champion Edition has been released on Android. So this is a free download. The game itself, Champion Edition, is free. You can get it for free. The initial download it's available on Google Play. It includes one playable character, who is Ryu, and 3 AI-controlled characters, Chun-Li, Guile, and Zangief. And you can choose to unlock the full game for a one-time in-app purchase of $5, $5 There will be 32 Street Fighter characters available in total, and Android version of the game gets an exclusive character, Dan. Good old Dan in his pink gi. So you can play this, download it now on the Google Play Store. It's available, and you can also verse players from around the world via Wi-Fi, and there is also a single-player arcade mode if you prefer just to play single-player. So there's that. Could be fun to have a bit of a 1v1 or a bit of a single-player fun on, like, if you're on the train or something, download the game. Street Fighter in your pocket. Why not? Next up, the biggest news that we're going to talk about, and I will dig into this with my guest as well. Very excited. Capcom announced the details for the Capcom Pro Tour 2018. That's right, the Capcom Pro Tour is back. The Street Fighter V league that runs throughout the year is back. And I believe the prize pool was, I want to say, 600,000 for the year. But the trailer is out, so you can catch most of the details there. Capcom also have a lot of details up on the Capcom Pro Tour website. But just to recap, there's been a lot of changes. Oh yes, it was $600,000. I was right. Thank God. Thank you, memory. Don't fail me. So they've made a few changes to, according to them, further streamline the Capcom Cup qualification process while maintaining the prestige of winning premier events. And a lot of, there's been interesting reactions from the community. I know personally, coming from the Australian FGC, was disappointed to see that, Australian didn't get a premier event this year, but, it is what it is, right? And I think Capcom, they have a lot of work cut out for them in terms of running this league, and it's not easy to do a year-long league and try and factor in all these different elements of running tournaments and players and regions and such. So they probably did the best that they could. And I know that they also said that they're working on putting out a statement addressing a lot of the questions. So this year, regional finals have been changed a little bit in compared to last year. Previously, players competing in their own respective regions would qualify for Capcom Cup. And then an existing rule prevented players from competing in a regional finals outside of their own region. But this year, the regional finals will include an open tournament, allowing a player from any region to compete for global leaderboard points, prizing, and regional leaderboard points. If that sounds confusing, I can understand why it is. There is a lot to wrap your head around, but try and think of it this way. So there's the global leaderboard, which includes everyone, and everyone is stacked up against each other on that. And then there's the regional leaderboard, which is broken down per region. So there's 4 regions: North America, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. And these 4 regions have their players, they're also broken down into their own leaderboard with their points and such. And it's I think the top 8 players from every region there are the ones who qualify. So a bit confusing, but I'm doing my best to explain it here. So sorry if it doesn't work. Maybe when our guest comes on, he can do a better job than I can, because it does. I remember going through all this last year, or the year before, sorry. Anyway, and then the winner of the regional finals top 8 tournament they will automatically go on to qualify for Capcom Cup. So, and if the winner is already qualified, then the automatic qualifier goes to a player on the global leaderboard from that respective region based on the final placements at the end of the regular season. There will also be online ranking events for players who don't wish to travel a lot or attend events. There will be 4 online ranking events per region, and they will follow the same point structure as ranking events. So if you are one of those players who doesn't want to travel and compete online, you have 4 online ranking events per your region to try and compete in. Capcom also has released a schedule for the tournaments that will be a part of their global premiere events as well as like their ranking events per region. It's pretty long, so I'm not going to like read through the whole thing, but I guess I could say that the upcoming premiere events that we have that are very close would be Final Round 20. That's taking place in Atlanta, March 16th to March 18th. And then we have the Norcal Regionals, NCR, which is taking place in Sacramento in March 30th to April 1st. April Fools. Happy April Fools. So those 2 are the ones that are coming at first. They are, of course, in the US. After that, there's one in France, Stunfest 2018, which is mid-May. But March, I guess mid-March and beginning of April is when the events start to really kick off. So those are it. And of course, that was confirmed a bit earlier as well. And of course, like, you know, Evo and all that such. We talked about Evo last week. So it'll be interesting to see how Capcom will choose to weight the points for these events. I think, you know, according to them, they're streamlining. So we'll see. But next up, we have a guest who is joining us. Really excited. James Chen, Street Fighter commentator, who has been in the scene for an established time. Really interested to get his thoughts. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back, everyone, to 1-2 Punch. I am your host, Zorine. We're here to talk about fighting games, and guess who I've got on the line? Commentator extraordinaire, James Chen. How are you, James? How's
everybody going out there? How's everybody going?
Well, I'm hoping that everyone's doing great. Thanks for coming on the show. Really glad to have you here.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be on.
Well, just before we went on our break, I was talking about the Capcom Pro Tour details that were just announced. I don't know if... oh, yes, you have probably seen all the details and such. What was your first reaction to what they announced?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously, after it was announced, most people were just talking about the distribution of premiere events. That seems to be like the number one thing that everyone's talking about. And, you know, I definitely agree with a lot of that because Europe, outside of their regional finals, has like a whole whopping 2 premieres. And there's literally no premieres in Latin America. And North America has like 6 or 7 premieres or something. So there's a little bit maybe of a distribution imbalance. But the one thing that I wonder is, I wonder if they're actually going to allow more premieres later on. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they have the ability to add premieres during the course of the year. But right now, it feels like it's going to be a lot harder for people outside of the North American region to qualify.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the hottest topics that people have been talking about. And I mean, like, I do wonder, was it a logistics thing? Did they have like problems coordinating with other regions? Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes factors that we have to consider for this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably so many reasons for having everything turn out the way it did. And the worst thing about it is like when you don't know, the speculation is always going to be the worst, you know. Like I really doubt it that, for example, that Capcom is trying to help North America region get more players or anything like that. But I mean, it could just be that some of the events that were premieres last year just really didn't, you know, hold up to their premiere status. I know, for example, DreamHack Sweden last year it was unfortunate that it was on the same weekend, I believe, as CEO, but not a lot of people went, and it was really small, but it still gave the premier points, and so this year it's not a premier event. Instead, DreamHack Montreal is. But then Canada Cup is also a premier event, which is in Toronto, which are both East Coast Canada tournaments, and so, it just ended up giving us another North America event. But yeah, I wish it would be nice if we knew what the reasoning for behind choosing which premier events they had are, but unfortunately that just leaves everybody to speculation at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think from, what I've heard, rumor is that they're working on a statement to address this, but I do think what you say is right. Like, it seems like there's a lot more overlap this year, right? So, even the UK events, they're both in Birmingham, like, they get them like twice a year, which seems kind of skewed, I guess. Like, I feel like it just should be spread out more. I don't know. I mean, like, it's hard to say. Is the North American player base like the biggest that they need to cater to? Like, who knows? I don't really know.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, what this means too, because it's not even just, being. I mean, obviously, as a pro player, if you're sponsored, you're going to have some advantages now because people are going to you're going to be able to fly out to all of these events. But even just flying out to the events really kind of doesn't indicate how much harder it's going to be for a lot of people, because when you do travel, all of a sudden you got to deal with more jet lag issues, and it's just going to be harder to be on your game 100% when you're traveling really far for a lot of tournaments. Like sometimes I'll just even travel to the East Coast from where I am, and even as a commentator, I'm like, man, I got to wake up at 10 a.m. and commentate. That's like 8 a.m. my time, or 7 a.m. my time, As a commentator, it's hard. I can't even imagine what it's like to be as a player,
Yeah, definitely. I actually think that leads to like another interesting point. The way when you mentioned that, it seems like this kind of system benefits players who are sponsored, who are able to travel a lot. And it's almost, like if you are an amateur Street Fighter player who is looking to go pro and, get sponsored and get a team, it's like almost as if you have to spend so much money first and invest a lot into going to all these tournaments and playing, with jet lag and maybe being tired, like you said. So I wonder, I know Capcom's doing some online tournaments as well in addition to these events, but is it enough? Is that enough for, new players to come on in and shake things up?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot harder because not only are the premier events less spread around, but the premier events are also giving the most points now. Last year, I believe first place was like 400 or something, but now at a premier you get like 700 this year or something to that degree. And ranking events, if I'm not mistaken, only get like 100 points, 150 points for first place.
150, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you can confirm. Okay, I just want to make sure I don't get the wrong number. But
no, you got it right. It's 150.
Okay, yeah. So that's less, I believe, than last year it was. And so I feel like even the players who can only travel within their own region. So like Latin America has more ranking events than any of the other scenes. Like I think they have like maybe twice as many ranking events from where they're at, but at the same time, because the points for premieres are so much higher than the rankings, someone calculated it, and it was like Latin America still getting the least amount of points total, which is like 2,600 and some points, whereas like U.S. is getting like 4,500 or 5,000 points or something like that. There was some calculation to that degree, and so, last year we had guys like, obviously Mena RD won, but, more importantly, guys like Didi Mokov, the Dalsum player from Brazil, and I believe he's from Brazil. Yeah, he's from Brazil, and he got into the Capcom Pro Tour and into the Capcom Cup, and he did super well, and he was awesome. He sent Kazunoko to losers bracket, and he probably wouldn't be able to do that as easily this year because there's no premier events in Latin America, and that means he's got to travel to every like Latin America, ranking event. to try to score as many points as possible. And I even know, traveling for people in South America is hard enough as it is, so it's going to be a lot more work for people, especially in that area and in, strangely enough, Europe, which only has just the 2 premieres.
Yeah, it does make me wonder. I know, according to the announcement, Capcom said that they evaluated last year's results and streamlined the point distribution according to that. But it just seems like the gap between first place at a premiere versus like the gap, what you get for first place at a ranking event, like it's just so big. It's crazy, right? Like it's almost like what, 4 times more? That to me is insane. And it's just crazy. And they on top of that, they've also reduced the amount of players who are eligible for points, like in total as well. So there's that. Like if you place lower than 7th at a ranking event, like you don't get anything now. So
right. I think you get like 1 point.
Yes, if you get 7th, you're like, I made top 8. I get 1 point.
Hey, you know what? It's a point of pride. If you get 1 point, you still have more points than most of the people.
Oh my god!
You'll be on the board. Oh, man.
So suddenly, top 8 is not what it used to be.
Right. Now, the only thing that I can add to that, though, is that on their website, on their official announcement here, under the tournament schedule, it says, below is a list of events currently confirmed for the 2018 season of the Capcom Pro Tour. We'll be updating the schedule with the remaining dates for ranking events, regional finals, and online ranking events. So it sounds like maybe they might add some more events as it goes. Unfortunately, they don't list Premier in that. They say we'll be updating the schedule with the remaining dates for ranking, regional, and et cetera, et cetera. But it does sound like that, hopefully they'll make changes as the year goes along. And, I was talking to Ultra David, my commentary partner, about this. And, I don't think anyone would be mad if they were suddenly like, here's a new premiere, or this tournament's been upgraded to a premiere, or here's a new ranking. Like, I don't think anyone would get mad if they changed the schedule by adding events during the course of the year. So, hopefully that still has a possibility. I don't want to set people up for oh, they're going to add stuff, and then they don't. And everyone's like, James said you were adding stuff. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I think as long as they do that with enough notice to people so that people don't feel like, oh, I gambled on these 2 ranking events hoping, that, and then one of them that get to be chosen to be like upgraded as a premiere or something.
Right.
I think, you don't want to feel like you made the wrong choice by attending a tournament ever, I think.
Right.
Or adding it retroactively. That is my pet peeve. Like, I hate that the most when leagues do that. Like, they decide that, like, after an event's done and dusted, like, oh, yeah, we're suddenly going to make this, part of our league or circuit or whatever.
Yeah, no, that definitely, I hope they never do that, afterwards say, oh, you know what, this tournament turned out to be big enough, so we'll make it a premiere now retroactively. Like, if they do that, there will be, heads will roll at that point in time, because, you see a lot of top players like Justin Wong, he's just sitting there going, when's the schedule coming out? I need to plan my year. I need to plan which events to go to. And of course, they're going to target the premiere events. And so if it's not a premiere ahead of time and then they somehow retroactively do that, then there will be angry people. So, I doubt that they will do that, but, you never know.
Yeah, you never know, right? I mean, like, I also highly doubt that they would do that, but, crazier things have happened, I suppose. What do you think about Mena RD being the only person to get a seed, to be qualified for a Capcom Cup this year?
Well, they've done that previous years before. Kazunoko, when he won 2 years ago, he was automatically qualified. And then Knuckle-Doo won the next year. Now, Knuckle-Doo was supposed to go there, but then at the last minute, he couldn't make Capcom Cup anymore. He had to pull out of the event. And so second place, which was Ricky Ortiz, took her spot. She got the spot in the tournament as opposed to Knuckle do. So, it's been what they've been doing all year long, and I like that too. I like the idea of having it so that no matter what, the champion of the previous year gets to come back and defend the championship. I think that's cool. There may be a chance that Mena RD all of a sudden just hits a slump and is terrible this year, and people will be like, "Oh, he doesn't deserve it" or anything. But I really doubt it, because Mena RD is too strong of a player, too solid of a player. I'm sure he'll be still kicking butt all year long. So.
Yeah, definitely. And, even though he's qualified, I don't think it means that he should relax at all. But it's nice that he gets to come back and defend the title, right? Like, that'll be cool.
Right. Yeah, one of the things, too, is that, even though he's automatically qualified, his seeding is still determined by the points that he gets. And, in general, the seedings have been pretty accurate, and the strong players are going to be at the top. So, if, let's say, Infiltration continues his year this year, let's say Itazan all of a sudden using Abigail just starts killing everybody, and, you get these certain Punk, of course, is going to be doing super well all year long. Those guys are going to be ranked in the top 10. You don't want to be in the bottom side of the seeding, because then you got to face one of them in the first round and such. And so, Mena RD is definitely not going to be slacking at all, because he wants to gain enough points so that he could be high in the seeding as well and play maybe one of the, quote, weaker players, even though at the Capcom Cup you can barely call anyone a weaker player. But, you still want to get as high a seed as possible.
Right, yeah, so you can just, relax a little bit more and breathe a little bit easier. That tournament is a very high pressure situation, so definitely agree with you. So do you think, just to go back to the whole distribution of points for premier events and ranking events, do you think that the changes that Capcom have made this year, do you think that they're warranted, or do you think that ranking events should get a few more points, or... what's your stance on that?
I feel like I'm not like really opposed to what they did. I do feel like the ranking events should have a little bit more points, or if anything, so first place at a ranking event gets 150, and second at a ranking event gets 70. That's a huge drop off in points from first to second place, and I get why, because obviously ranking events aren't as hotly contested. But if you were going to reward less for first place, I feel like they should have not made the drop off so high for ranking events. Like, it should have just been like 150, then 130, then 100, for like first, second, and third, and that way. It rewards people for traveling to the regional events, so even if you don't get first place all the time, if you get second place, let's say it went from 150 to 130 instead, and let's say you're in Latin America and everywhere you go is Mena RD, and you're like, dang it, he's taking all my points. And so he gets 3 first places and he'll get 450 points, but let's say you're good enough that you got second place all 3 times. You would end up with 210 points, and that's like not much at all. That's less than second place at a premier event. And so what I feel like is, if they were at 130, they would have 390 points, and they would have a better chance of getting to get some more points on the board, even though they can't make as much as a premier. So.
Yeah, well, we are going to go to a quick ad break, and we'll be right back to continue this discussion. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to 1-2 Punch. I'm your host, Zorine. I've got James Chen on the line. We're talking about CPT 2018. Welcome back, James.
Hi, what's going on? How's it going?
Is everything all right?
Yep.
Okay, so right before we went on to our break, I just wanted to reiterate what you said about the ranking points system that they have. So for ranking events, first place gets 150 and second place gets 70. I agree with you. I think the drop off there is a bit sharp, I think, and it's also kind of cruel to someone if they've gone around placing second at a bunch of ranking events to have that big of a point gap in between them.
Yeah, the thing is, there's so many good players, and a lot of people who are going to be winning premier events are probably going to be winning a lot of the ranking events too. So they're going to be kind of taking points away from other people at the same time. So, I wish the ranking events didn't have such a sharp drop-off. I mean, especially the fact that, poor 7th place, 2 guys who get 7th place get 1 whole point.
Why even bother with that? Like, at that point, you might as well not give out points. I'm like, just stop at 5 if you're going to give out 1 at 7th. I don't understand why that's
I know. Exactly. It's at that point in time, like I said, it's almost like pouring salt on the wounds.
It's like you get that 1 participation award, like
exactly.
Yay.
Man.
And if you place
Honorable
129th,
really.
yeah, pretty much. You also get 1 point if you place 33rd at a premier event, and if you place 129th at Evo.
Yeah. What the funny thing too is that at the end of the year, one of the positions in seeding is going to come down to 1 point. How much you want to bet? And like everybody who's been making fun of it is just like, whoops, never mind.
That's totally what's going to happen. I can see it now. That this is Capcom's ultimate plan. They've all set it up this way. They're like, this is what it's going to come down to.
Exactly.
Gonna make everyone sit on the edge of their seat. I did have another topic I actually wanted to brush upon. So it's the Capcom Pro Tour, and yet all we have is Street Fighter news, which I think is interesting. No mention of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. What do you think of that?
It makes me sad, to be honest with you, because I do enjoy the game a lot. I think the game is really good, and, a lot of the negativity towards the game, I do feel like is kind of a bum rap, but at the same time, I don't think it's entirely undeserved. Like, the game is not the prettiest game, there's a lot of presentation issues with it, and obviously, it's just the launch was kind of weird, and I don't know, like, there's Capcom kind of brought it upon themselves in a lot of ways, and it was also kind of bad timing that they got announced pretty much around the same time as like Dragon Ball, like at E3 last year, and Dragon Ball just kind of blew everybody's mind, and Marvel just looked so like incomplete in comparison. But I think the gameplay is fine, but the fact that it, the Battle for the Stones event was kind of gimmicky, and so players didn't really get to feel like it was serious, and then, like I said, just the general overall negativity, it didn't make it into EVO, and now it has no Capcom Pro Tour. I mean, this was just not the year for Marvel, I guess. And like I said, it makes me sad because I really do enjoy the game, and I really feel like the game, deserve to have 1 year where players can really fight and fight for their, bragging rights and for a good prize money and really show their talents in the game, because the game is, like I said, I enjoy it when I play it. I really like watching it. I know a lot of the people, a lot of people still play it. It still gets decent numbers at most of the events that it's at. And so, again, the worst thing about it is, like, everyone wants to come up with their own conspiracy theories, and everything, because, we don't know the answer. And so in my brain, I'm always just thinking that it might have to just do with Marvel, because Marvel's tough to work with. You got to license everything, and, they have to approve of all these things. And so I always wonder if that's kind of what maybe is making it so that they decided not to do it. But again, that's just complete speculation on my part. I could be completely 100% wrong on that, so it's hard to say, but that's the worst part, is that without official word, everyone's just going to keep coming up with theories all over the place.
Yeah, and honestly, like you say, like, Marvel is so tight-lipped, or I don't know if it's Marvel or Capcom or whoever it is that's in charge, like, about releasing news about MVCI. They're so tight-lipped about any news to do with it. And, I had a great shower thought the other day. I was like, man, they totally could have capitalized on the success of Black Panther and tied into, I don't know, extra DLC, extra characters like Killmonger or someone, to add into MVCI. It would have been so good, right? And that would have built up so much hype. And I'm just like, such a wasted opportunity for Marvel.
Oh my God! Now that you even mentioned it, putting Killmonger in there would have been amazing.
Right?
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, it would have been so good.
Now I'm even more sad. Thanks, Zorine.
Sorry. P.S. Black Panther's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go watch it. It's fantastic.
Yes, awesome movie.
But yes, so I don't know. It's kind of sad to see, and like, should it even be called Capcom Pro Tour at this point? Might as well just call it Street Fighter Pro Tour if they're gonna go that route, you know.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm hoping, though, is that I know that there's a lot of guys out there, you know, shout-outs to Persia and Yipes and Kinder Party and Angelic and, you know, SBK, all those guys out there who are, you know, really trying to do a lot of work to keep the Marvel scene alive. Like, I know at EVO, for example, they're taking applications for, like, side games to be streamed, and I know Angelic's already put in the application for MVCI and UMVC3. You know, so hopefully that scene, I mean, they did it. It's interesting because they did a great job keeping Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 alive last year. And, you know, so I have no doubt that they'd be able to really keep a strong Marvel scene going this year. But, you know, one of the reasons why they did it last year was because they thought MVCI was coming out and then there would be a Pro Tour next year and then all this other stuff. So they kind of went all out last year, and that's not easy to do. Like, that takes a lot of money and resources and time and effort, and you do all that stuff, the new game comes out, and then the new game doesn't get official support, and, like, it kind of hurts the motivation, you know, for a lot of those guys who put in so much work. So hopefully they can still find, you know, the drive to still make Marvel, you know, make Marvel great again. I mean, honestly, make Marvel great again this year. And have 2018, you know, still have a great year of MVCI, because, like I said, I totally get why it has a bad rap. I totally get why it has a lot of negativity. But, you know, my only thing is I just, you know, for people who have judged the game without really giving it a shot, you know, you don't have to necessarily play it, but just, like, watch it and, you know, try to appreciate it, try to look past the drab presentation and enjoy the game itself, because I do think the game is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think that goes for, like, a lot of scenes. I think showing support rather than hating on the scene, I think, is more important. And, you know, being supportive of the Marvel scene, like, you know, I think it's up to the community to band together. And I think, you know, Marvel has a great scene and a great community now. I love talking to Marvel players and I love watching them play. And high-level Marvel is a lot of fun to watch. So there's definitely a lot of potential there. And like you said, they should, you know, work hard to keep that going. Even if there is no official support. But that being said, I do also understand, you know, it's hard to find motivation for something when it seems like even, you know, Capcom, the developer of the game, isn't showing any support. It's kind of rough. Right. It's rough on those Marvel streets.
Yeah, it's very, very discouraging. So, yeah, it's tough. So, yeah, but, I mean, hopefully, you know, like, it's not even just Marvel as well, right? So, like, I mean, we're talking about Marvel, but, you know, one of the things that you kind of, you know, hit on was, you know, just showing support and everything like that. And, you know, that's kind of a message that I've been trying to present to a lot, you know, people all the time, even if it's like a lot of people think Injustice is boring, but if you watch Injustice closely and you really learn the game, you find out that, you know, it's actually a really, really fun game, and there's a lot of strategy involved. And yeah, I know, like, Sonic Fox can make the zoning look super good, but it's not as good as you think it is, and it takes a lot more skill to do the zoning. And, you know, just all the different fighting games out there. Even, for example, for me this year, I never played Tekken before. I've never been good at Tekken, and Tekken was always a game that I, like, was my lunch hour. You know, it's like every time Tekken Tate came on, let's go eat, you know, because I didn't understand it while I was watching it. But this year, well, I should say last year, I really took the time to understand Tekken, and now it's absolutely one of my favorite games to watch. And, you know, it's just a good lesson that, you know, once, give all the games a shot. Like, I know it's easy to see something and be like, this is not my game, so this sucks, but like, really, really give all the different games a shot, because you'd be surprised at how much you do enjoy watching all the different games and how fun they really are to play.
Well said, James. Well said. I think that's really great advice, actually, especially in these times when everyone is so negative and there's in general a lot of negativity around in the scene. So I think, and let's not forget that Capcom Pro Tour, like CPT, this is only the 3rd ever season. I'm happy that Capcom has, put up the effort and the time and the resources to even have a pro league for people to aspire to, or for players to compete in and, be able to make a living off. I think that's really awesome that we're at that state now.
Yeah, even just earlier today, I was talking to a friend. I was talking to him about Mena RD. And I was like, yeah, he won $250,000 last year. And he was like, he won what? He won how much? And it's not just like, oh, I got this prize money. I mean, that's life-changing money, for someone like Mena RD, right? Because, I mean, people have said that, at $250,000 US in the Dominican Republic, he could buy a mansion and 2 cars and still have money left over to do all sorts of crazy things. And so, it's great. It is a wonderful thing to have that kind of support from Capcom. And honestly, we have the Tekken World Tour. Last year we had the Injustice Pro Series and stuff like that. But, I'm not trying to just say Capcom deserves all the credit for it, but Capcom establishing the CPT early on, really kind of paved the way, in my opinion, for a lot of the other, world tours that have been going on. So it really kind of helped establish that in the fighting game community as a worthy thing to do. And so I'm sure a lot of the other companies are like, see what Capcom's doing? This is what we should do for our game. So, this is my subtle way of saying, ArcSys, where's our Guilty Gear tour? I want a Guilty Gear tour so badly.
Well, Cross Tag Battle is the new anime fighting game that's going to be out. That's apparently going to be the next big thing. So maybe that one has potential. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully ArcSys will do a Guilty Gear Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle and regular Blaze Blue, and maybe just throw in Dragon Ball in there as well, and just have a series for the whole thing. That'd be so cool.
You're calling it now. You are calling it now. You're the first one to call it. And if it happens, you can say you called it way before it actually happened.
I'll actually just take credit for it. I'll be like, they listened to the show, they heard the idea, and we're like, Jesus, right, and so let's do this. So there you go. I'm just going to take credit for it, too.
Oh, man, amazing. I do want to quickly, before we wrap up, go back just to a topic we brushed upon. So we know that there's all the regional qualifiers and events that are happening, and the ranking events, premier events. For the online side of things, I've always wondered, wondered if players felt like there were enough online opportunities for people who don't really travel, and wanted to get your thoughts, because you're really established in the fighting game scene, and you've been around long enough to really compare it.
It's interesting because I think for different regions it means something different, because whenever there's an online tournament in Asia, all of the top players are playing it. Itazan's in it, Kazunoko's in it, and Tokido's playing in it, and Momochi's playing in it. But then when you go into the U.S., the ones in North America, barely anybody plays in it. It's interesting. And, I think a lot of it has to do with the internet infrastructure, because obviously in the U.S., our internet is not as good as Japan. So a lot of times I feel like people in the States aren't using it as much, but I feel like there should be more. I feel like there should be more to give more people opportunities, especially because we don't have as many premier events around, so the online stuff could be a way to make up for it.
All right, yeah, I think that's a very good point to raise, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for your time today, James. Really glad to have you here on the show, and wish you best of luck for whatever events you've got coming up next. Where can people find you next?
I'm going to be at SenCal Standoff this weekend. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at jchenzor, and I'll tweet out the stream link and all that stuff like that. But immediately after that, I'll be going to final round pretty soon, and that will be the start of the CPT. So, there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming up. A lot of good stuff coming up very soon.
Awesome. Thanks, James. And thank you, everyone, for listening. This is 1-2 Punch. I'm Zorine. Bye.
You're listening to the Fantasy Sports Radio Network.
Put up your dukes. It's time for a 1-2 punch.